tired of living a life you don't love? Do you crave more and find the pathway elusive? Well, welcome to the Intuitive Coaching Show with me, Ruth Wilson, the Intuitive Coach, and Dr. Pat, as we begin to discover your unique personal magic and easy steps to create that life you love, that life you crave. As a life coach, certified hypnotherapist, and intuitive, I am passionate about helping you tap into your intuition and learn to work with your inner resources to use your energy to create a life you desire. You don't have to be positive, stuff your feelings, or spend lots of time and money on self-development, because during this show, we'll show you the how and why. Ready to turn crave into brave, desire into inspire, and catapult your life force full steam ahead in the intuitive coaching way? Call in, write in, plug in. The Intuitive Coaching Show starts now.
I get to do this incredible show with the most amazing intuitive coach, Ruth Wilson. Today, we're going to be talking about something that seems mysterious for a lot of people. And what is so mysterious about it? Well, I'll tell you what's mysterious about it. I can't tell you how many times in my life I've been working with someone and they've said something like, "Oh, I'm not intuitive at all. I don't have any sense of any kind of psychic abilities. And then you talk to them a little bit, right? And what you discover is they start to talk about events in their lives that somehow, some way, they found a pathway. They can't explain how they found it. And boom, there we are. Today's show is how to tell if it's really psychic information or not. Ruth, great to have you here. This is an important show for a lot of reasons. And, I know you are like me. You've talked to a lot of people. And I always get no for a couple of questions. One is, do you think you're creative? No, no, right? That's like, no, I'm not, right? So that's the first one. And then the next one is, do you think you're musically talented? I always ask that question. Oh, no, I can't sing. And then you ask, well, how intuitive are you? Do you think you have any sense of things that maybe, oh, not me. You're psychic? You think I'm psychic? Oh, no. All right, let's get down to it. Because once you start to talk to people and they start to tell you different stories, you're like scratching your head and like, oh, you got from here to here, no real thought, but you somehow got some information, made a decision, and now you're the executive of a company. All right, I paraphrase, but that's a little bit about today's show, right?
That's it. That's it exactly. And I'm trying to get more and more amusing as I get more mature and help people with their spiritual quest and discover that there's really only a couple reasons you're here. And one of them is to create things. And one of them is to use your intuition to create things. And I say intuition, and I mean inner genius. And honestly, we're talked out of it a lot. We're talked out of that inner genius, but that's really the one thing you got going that is going to get you results double time. If you're struggling with life, if you're struggling with anything, I can't say that using that inner genius will make it go away, but it sure will turn the ship around much quicker than if you don't use it. And it's really easy. The reason I came up with the idea for this program is it's really easy to think something is psychic when it's not, or think something is not psychic when it is.
Yeah.
And I've done psychic readings where people want to test me and see if I really know what I'm talking about. And I wish that it were that cut and dried, but there's a lot of ways that you can figure out, am I getting good information? Am I getting it for myself? Am I reading somebody else appropriately? And when you're getting a reading, you can listen, not in a way to test the person, but to really hear what they're saying and maybe give them the feedback that helps them give you information if you're getting a psychic reading or you're getting your friend's intuitive information.
So I have a working title for a book. that is about this. Now, usually you don't get your wish. You come up with a book, and this is why I haven't written a book, okay, just to be clear, because you come up with these ideas and then you hand it to a publisher and they want to change it. But one of the things that I thought about to really look at my life was the breadcrumbs. Breadcrumbs. And let me tell you what I mean by breadcrumbs. You know, what is that thing where you put the breadcrumbs and the bird follows it, whatever the animal is? I don't know. I give my rabbit out here oatmeal, loves oatmeal, follows the oatmeal. But in our lives, when we stop for a minute and we look back, we can see where breadcrumbs have been dropped along the path to get us to where they are. But yet, you're not going to see them if you don't believe that those breadcrumbs were there and you made an intuitive decision to take the pathway. And I think that's why we're talking to people today, because how do we know if psychic information is good information? Let's start with that, you know,
Okay.
because
We
you have to have a sense of that. Otherwise, how do you trust the process?
Well, and a lot of times we use the process without even knowing we're using it. We use it without trusting it. A lot of it is unconscious, and we follow it without having a clue.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of the studies that have shown that people know what's going to come up on a video screen instance beforehand, and they're not aware of that at all. So the system is there and it's working, whether you like it or not, and whether you use it or not. But if you use it appropriately, it gets so much more effective, and it makes life so much more fun and so much more juicy and magic too. So I mean that's part of the reason I love this stuff is that it reads like a good novel instead of a just a storyboard suddenly. So it's really important to tune into something that you're not taught to tune into. We're trying to figure things out all the time, and intuition is not figured out. It's in here. It's in the heart center, and it's in the superconscious. And it's hard to talk about because if I say superconscious, I sound like a psychologist, and that's not where I'm coming from. And I don't claim any knowledge like that. But it is a part of you that is magic. There's a part of you that's, I would say, is divine, that knows everything, that sees everything, and that can help you make the best decisions. And when you tap into it, you get fabulous results and fabulous information. The
Yeah.
trouble is it's very close to some unconscious stuff that's kind of ugly, the stuff you learned when you were two that said nothing you said was intelligent, or
Right.
the feedback you got from your family that went awry, and you don't think anybody likes you, and you gotta take that shtick, and when you hear it, leave it behind. And that's really hard to do because we really believe that stuff.
Yeah, but we gotta really move beyond it. And I'm so glad, I didn't think you want to talk about that today, but I'm glad you brought it up. Because so much of how we're influenced as a child. So the good news for me, I think, is while my dad was so poo-poo on everything, you know what I mean? Although he would call me lucky. See, let's put this in practical terms for the audience.
Yeah,
So
the
when
racetrack, it's different.
but when people call you lucky, what is their basis for that? I mean, my father and sister thought I was so lucky. They got me a boxer named Lucky when I was like a kid. And so I didn't understand any of that. Why would they call me lucky? What was that about? And a lot of times what we do in our society, rather than to say to somebody, you really have a gift, you are intuitive, lucky is the word that comes up. What does that mean in our pop culture? It means that somehow along the way, you gain some insight to create something that gives you a life over and above what somebody else thought you'd ever have. It's that luck, right? I've been asked if I was Irish. That's how lucky I was when I was younger. And I am still lucky, but I don't call it luck anymore. So let's break this down for people. There are things that guide us in our lives, right? And that is the information that we get. So, how do we know it's good? And how do we avoid information that may seem like it's psychic guidance and it is not? That's the trick, right?
Hmm. Well, this is where I come in with my clients.
Yeah.
Practice helps. Having practice, knowing that inner voice, knowing that, which is usually not an inner voice, by the way, knowing that inner information, how it comes to you, and how to listen for it, how to pick it up, really, really can help. There is a lot of bad information that comes from projection. It comes from our beliefs. If you're getting a psychic information from somebody else, sometimes you're getting their beliefs instead of what's really psychic. And I wouldn't criticize anybody for that, but it helps if you can hear it so that you know
Mhm.
how to decipher it. Mainly, you have to learn to stop listening to the chatter. And the chatter is useful and the intellect is wonderful. And I have a lot of faith in our intellects to figure things out. This information isn't figured out. I don't know where it comes from. It's there and it's there magically. And you just have to be comfortable not knowing. And most of us are not comfortable
Yeah.
not knowing. I need to know. I need to know. No, you need to not know so that the information can come. So that's number one is you have to be able to listen and really kind of be an empty vessel and bring this in. The other thing you have to be able to do is to pick up that very first thought. That very first thing that comes to your mind is the ticket. It is the thread you need to get a hold of to get psychic information. And you got to be careful not to decide, oh, I don't like that symbol, so I'm going to look for another one. Or no, it can't possibly be that. Yeah, it is. It comes in that quickly, and you got to pick up whatever it is and say, okay,
Yeah.
that's stupid, but that's what it is, and go with it. And that's when you get the amazing hits. That's when you start letting this following this thread, the breadcrumbs,
Hmm.
letting it unfold, and you get the story that tells you exactly where the love of your life is, or why you shouldn't take that job, even though it looks like it's the best thing in the world, or why everything is really going to be okay, even though it looks so gloomy. So you get these wonderful chunks of information, but they don't come because you figured out how it makes sense. They usually don't make sense. After the fact, they make sense. Usually, this information comes in symbols too. That's the other thing that's
Yeah.
really tough. But you usually understand your own symbols, and you usually understand your own symbols in ways that you're not going to find in a dream book or in a psychology manual. They're usually very personal. So you have to be open to your own your own special way of communicating to yourself. You've been talking to yourself this way for as long as you've been on the planet,
Ever.
maybe longer, and you know it all. You know it all so well that you can really ignore it or write it off easily. And you got to stop doing that and start valuing that inner voice and what it tells you.
I want to talk about this for a minute because what is really important is two things you said. One is in order for us to step up and get plugged in, as I like to call it, I have not been able to do that without the help of others. I have needed people, Sidonia Cahill, my mentor, people along the way to take me through various process so that I can understand what's going on and own it. It's one thing to see it and say, gee, you're lucky, got a dog named Lucky. That's one thing. But then to understand what's really behind that. Why do people call you lucky? And this is the truth. When I was young, I was dating somebody 8 years older than me, and I think I was still in high school. What was I, like 15 maybe, dating somebody, and like to gamble, right? So we would like go to Yonkers. And so here I am, and the gang, right, very young, What should I bet on? What? Well, the horses come out. I look at them, scan them over. I like the number three. So they bet the number three wins. And so this goes on until it becomes not pleasant anymore for me to go to the racetrack, right? Because I love horses. I love the power of them, but I don't want to be responsible for picking somebody else's bet. And, it's an interesting thing. Was I lucky? Did I just have an intuitive sense, or could I read horses and their body features? So here's what I want to say. This is something that without it, I couldn't operate in the role that I have now in the company. I couldn't be as nearly efficient. Why? Because if I had to logically evaluate every decision I make, we would get nothing done here. Nothing. Nothing would happen. Even the producers, we just hired 2 producers. You just met Nat. Stefan is our second producer, and then Emily, of course. So we have 3 producers. And I get asked the question, how did you make these decisions, Pat? They're very different people. How did you make that decision? 1, I want a team. I don't want an individual. I want a team. I want people that can work well together. 2, they have to have the skill set. But then the final plug that gets pulled is based on my gut.
Yes.
It's based on, I trust this person I'm about to hire. I trust him with my reputation. This is the person. This is the Emily. This is the Nat. This is the Stefan. And I don't look back.
CEOs are notorious, and they've been studied extensively for using intuition, using it effectively, having their own system. And a lot of times it's a matter of just owning their own system. And I would go a step farther and say that a lot of us who have gotten into intuition training or some of these other woo-woo topics that have been popular get actually steered away from good intuitive sense. We're taught that there's something wrong with us, that we need to be fixed, that there is, if you could fix all those childhood voices, if you could solve all your wounds, you don't need to be fixed. It's all right there. And if you're an executive, you learn to use it, and you learn to use it fast, because you fail if you don't. And when I was in management, people would come to me and ask me for my gut feel on this, that, and the other thing.
Totally.
They didn't realize they were consulting a psychic, and I maybe I didn't either, but it's all right there already, and it's a matter of learning to accept what's there instead of making it a lot harder than it needs to be. Just the same way with goals, if you go for what you really love, you're going to succeed. If you have to fix something that's wrong with your life so that you can get something right with your life, and we're constantly encouraged to do that, kind of running around the maypole, when we should go straight for what we really know we want. And I think executives learn that really quickly.
You have to. And, let's talk about this. Yeah. Let's talk about how we do this. How do we access the good information? Because I'm sitting here for you today, and I have done it not quite like that. I have made some decisions that have been awful. And it's because I didn't follow my gut. And, I'm trying to please this one where I am now, starting this year, I decided I'm not going to do any of that. I'll keep everybody informed. But if my gut says hire Nat, Emily, and Stefan, I do it. Do you know what I mean? That's what I do. And as a result of that, you give people enough room. Nat and Stefan are in training, but already you saw Nat today, came right on here. Hi, Ruth, right? So you could see the trust you put in people and the reciprocation for that. It's an intuitive and psychic connection that you have with people. And I do believe this. Can you talk about how do we seek this information? Because when you get that, I don't know the right word, Ruth, but when you get that pure intuitive hit, There's something that automatically happens that you don't have to explain and you don't have to record. Talk to us about that. What does it feel like?
That pure hit is usually quite neutral. And I am the first one to say, oh, it just feels good. It just feels right. But the truth is, it doesn't feel right or good. It just feels, there's just a knowing. There's just a knowing that I can't describe because it's coming from
Exactly.
a place. It's not coming from my gut, really. It's not coming from my emotions, really. It's not logical at all. Sometimes it's crazy, but there's a neutral feeling that I just know this. And if I use somebody else to help me validate, or if I use a guide or something, um, sometimes that will um, cause me to second guess. And second guessing, as I said before, you got to catch that thought immediately. Second guessing doesn't work. But the other thing I have to point out, because it's kind of the bad news story of the story, is that sometimes you don't know why something is the right thing to do.
That's right.
So you may find that it is the right thing to hire Sally Ann, but Sally Ann teaches you things that you maybe didn't want to learn.
I just went through that. That was several hirings ago, but I did go through that. But there are things that I did learn from that, even though when you go through the hiring, you see it. There are things you learn about yourself. And so this time around, it is essential for us to build a very strong team here for what we're about to do. And so, right now, I'm not able to spend as much time in the studio and office, but starting next week, I will. And so, getting to know each other is super important as well. And so, how you go about that, and it's not just about the people you hire, but the world you're in, how you go about something also uses the intuitive process. And I'd like you to talk about that in the minutes we have left. So often we think about the end game. Oh, Pat picked a number 3 horse. But there's an intuitive process that we can use along the way.
I think, as I said, a lot of it is practicing using it, and a lot of it is letting it be there all the time and not pretending that it doesn't exist, which is unfortunate because when I was a kid, my family didn't really want to hear my ideas. My mother knew to listen to me because she had those ideas too, but the rest of them didn't want to know about it. So we're kind of trained out of it. I would say, call me and get trained back into it. It
That's what
might
I'm
not
saying.
take more than a minute, or it might take longer, depending on how much skill you want to have and how much practice you want to get. But I can be reached at www.intuitivecoach.com, and you can set up 20 minutes with me to get a free consult and find out what I can help you with. And mainly it's just getting comfortable with what you've got. You've got all the equipment you need. You've seen it all your life. Your intuition has led you correctly almost all the time, and you've done very well because of it. And everybody's got the same ability.
Yeah. And I want to say to people, reach out to Ruth because there are a couple of things I want to say to you. It's the whole scope of things. It isn't just about romance or jobs or selection. Intuition is a universal gift. It is to be used for all things. And that's what we forget. And by honing in and learning and fine tuning how to do that, Ruth, that is the difference between me taking 5 weeks to hire somebody as opposed to 5 minutes to knowing what to do. And that is the key. And that's why people should call you, because in the world we're living in now, we do not have time to put IBM cards in an old IBM machine and hope someday it's going to equate to the right trajectory for John Glenn to shoot down from the sky. We don't have that time anymore. Right? We have a nanosecond sometimes. And this is the moment where we have to learn how to do that. And that's what you do.
Yes, and your super conscious, your inner genius is all right here, right now, and it can do that in a nanosecond, unless it wants you to wait. And then, well, You might
Then
have
you
to
wait.
wait.
Then you wait. But you have to know when to hold them and when to fold them. And I think that's what you're teaching people. You know, sometimes we get an answer from the universe that we're like, really? That? And then you want to change it. No, you got the information, and that's your marching order. So you just, that's what you're getting. So you can always go back and revisit a question. You can
It's a
always go
cooperative
back.
effort over
It's a
time. Yeah,
cooperative method, but you have to learn how to do it. And I think that's what we're talking about, the work that you do. So often, if we get an answer that we don't like, we forget it, we throw it away, and it's
right.
not meant for that. Ruth, again, how do people work with you one more time? And what's your personal message?
My personal message is everybody has this inner genius, and life is so much better with it than without it. And I can be reached at www.intuitivecoach.com. And you can schedule 20 minutes with me there to find out what I can do for you, and we can customize my services to suit you.
I love it. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you so much. I mean, thank you for the reminder for everybody out there. I mean, we are living in a world now where the technology predictions that were made years ago are not for the future, they're here now. And
Mm,
with so many tools and AI in front of us, you have to hone in on your intuitive gifts. You have to do it. Why? Because there's so much information coming out of you. Wouldn't you want to have ease and grace in your day? And learning about your intuition, doing this with Ruth, that's going to help you shortcut things. That's going to help you have more peace. That's going to help you step away from worry. Ruth, thank you so much for today.
thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you all for tuning us in, turning us on. Nat, thank you for pushing all the right buttons. And for the rest of you, remember this, you have got the gift. Not just me, not just Ruth, not just anybody else, but you. We'll see you next time.
It's a magic world. Thank you for tuning in to the Intuitive Coaching Show with me, Ruth Wilson, and Dr. Pat. Tune in and watch next time for easy steps for creating a life you love. Every first Thursday of the month, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time, 2:30 Eastern, on transformationtalkradio.com to turn crave into brave, desire into inspire, and catapult your life force full steam ahead the intuitive coaching way. Discover your inner magic and how easy it can be without censoring yourself or spending years on self-development. Move toward what you desire right now, the intuitive coaching way. For more information, connect with me visiting intuitivecoach.info.